Next up is Voices of Change with your hosts, Leslie Acosta and Isa Richardson. Voices of Change is to connect, inform, and empower people to engage in social political change. Right here on Usula Radio.
Welcome, everyone. You are listening to Voices of Change on Usula Radio with your host, Leslie Acosta and Aisha Richardson. We're having a special edition today on Voices of Change. We have a special guest here in studio, Fred Ramirez. We also have another special guest, Senator Victor Torres from Florida. We're awaiting the entrance of Congressman Darren Soto, he hasn't come in yet, but we're waiting for him as well. We're going to have some participants from the community calling in and asking questions about this very important issue and presidential election, the Latino vote, the sleeping giant. And we know that there are signs that the Hispanic voting surge could spell trouble for President Donald Trump's re-election chances in November. Donald Trump has done nothing but assault the dignity of Hispanic families over and over again when it comes to the economy, health care, and even the COVID-19 crisis. The Hispanic community hold in their hand the destiny of this country if they come out and vote. Joe Biden will lose the election. And I'm going to say this again. Joe Biden will lose the election in November if he does not step up his ground plan with Latinos. This isn't any analysis or my analysis alone. It's the judgment of many political observers who are increasingly worried that Latinos will be taken for granted and may decide to stay home. I believe the issue with the Democratic Party is not one of resources. It's a mental shift away from the patronage politics that behaves like a dark age caste system that ignores Latinos and treat us like untouchables. Whatever the strategy is for reaching out to the Latino community, it cannot continue to include pandering by speaking Spanish only or doing photo ops and eating tacos. That is not acceptable anymore. So we want to welcome today Senator Victor Torres. He is in Florida. That is a battleground state. Pennsylvania is also a battleground state. And I think this conversation, Victor, is very important. And one of the questions that we do have, Senator, again, welcome to Voices of Change, is what are we doing on the front of courting the Latino vote? In Pennsylvania, it's been a little lackluster. I don't know in Florida. I know there's more movement in Florida. But what are we doing to court the Latino vote in Florida?
Well, thank you again, Leslie, and for the opportunity to speak to the public. It's always challenging in this environment that we are living in, and as you know, my family's from Puerto Rico, from Ponce, and making sure that my relatives who are still down there, they're okay and everything's moving along. But also we have family members here and making sure that they're registered to vote and how they registered, especially as I am a Democrat. And my philosophy is, no te quejes, sino vota. You know, the bottom line is reaching out to folks. They are reaching out through media. There's a movement, you know, y como tú dices, for too long, they've taken, you know, like not advantage, but a attitude about, well, the Puerto Ricans will vote with us or the Spanish will vote with us. But no, that's not the case. I remember going to meetings in Marion County, and I used to say to the Democrats, you want the Latino vote, but you don't go out and reach out into them. You know, you don't hear what they have to say. You got to engage with folks to know how they feel and what are the things that are affecting them. And in today's unemployment dilemma and the issues of health care, of finding money to pay your rent, cosa de food, buying food, they got to go to pantries. These are all issues that affect our community, and especially those of us when you look at the Latino community who have to work outdoors. You don't have, some of us don't have jobs that are, you can work out of an office. Some do, that's good. But like me, I was a bus driver. I was a cop. I mean, I was a school bus driver. I was outdoor. I was out there, and the idea that the majority of us are working with our hands and working with the skills that we have exposes us to this pandemic. But we have to make sure that the government reflects us and help us in times of need, and making sure that our families are secure. Right now, getting the message out, getting the voices to understand people on the radio, especially the anciano, and how to make sure they don't get scared. Vote by mail, is one way of voting here. Early voting is another way. And the day of the election, and you'd be surprised. I was out there the other Saturday, y una viejita me dijo a mí, no, yo voy a votar en persona. Yo no voy a votar por correo. Yo voy en persona. Yo no troteo correo. So I said, okay, you know.
Yeah.
But she was getting her ballot. So I says, si tú recibes la papeleta, no la abre, llévala al early voting site, entrégalo y dile que tú quieres votar en persona, that you want to vote in person. Just turn it in. Don't open it up, just turn it in, and they'll let you vote in person. So that's my encouragement to my neighbors, my friends all around where I live, that's how I do it. You gotta pound the message, Leslie. You gotta pound with our people. You gotta keep hammering and making them understand how important, why their vote is going to change and kick this guy out of office. And if last night was not enough proof for you to see what kind of person that man is, man, you don't say what's going to convince you.
Well, let me tell you, there's this, and Fred, you go ahead, you can chime in, adage that says, oh, see, if only Latinos voted. The fact is, and the response is more nuanced than that, Victor. And that is that Latinos do vote, but they don't vote in sufficient numbers. What say you, Fred?
Well, first of all, hello, Victor. How are you?
Hey, Fred. Nice
good to hear you again. For the listening audience, Victor Torre is State Senator from Florida District 15, which is Central Florida, the Orlando area known to us. They have little nuances of their neighborhoods, but basically to our listening audience here in Pennsylvania and Florida who are not familiar, District 15 is Central Florida. Heavy Puerto Rican population, Latino, but Puerto Rican population. Victor, yes, I agree with what both you're saying, that, you have to get that vote out. I'd like to ask you, point blank, to the point, why should Puerto Ricans and other Latinos vote Biden and not Trump? Why?
Yo creo que the 4 years have demonstrated to Puerto Ricans and other Latino communities the treatment from this president in the White House, and the lack of respect. Let me say that, the lack of respect for us who have served this country. I'm a veteran. I served in the Marine Corps. In my family, we have my uncles who served in the armed forces as well, from Ponce. How in the world can you still vote for a man that disparages our country, our people? I had an uncle tell me, el Trump te habla de nosotros como si fuéramos basura, que no tenemos el valor, that we don't value. We are just people, dirty people. There comes a time in your life that you have to stand up for what you believe in.
Right.
The pride that us Puerto Ricans, because I grew up with this pride, because I've seen it in my family. I saw it in my uncles. I saw it in my aunts. I saw it with my grandmother and my mom and my dad. I saw the pride of being Puerto Rican, how wonderful it was to say. And even me going overseas and other, always saying, yeah, I'm Puerto Rican. I'm a New York Rican, and people saying New York Rican. I say, yeah, New York Rican. My family, it is extension. they move back and forth from Puerto Rico to New York. But that is how people need to understand. They got to vote, man. They just can't sit back and say, well, I mean, but no, you have to care. You have to care.
Victor, I'd like to, Fred Ramirez here again. I'd like to ask you something again on this issue. Look, yes, we agree. We have to vote. We have to get out there. One of the issues that we have here in the Northeast, and I'm sure in Florida also, with the local Hispanic population, for your information, the majority of the Hispanic population of the city of Philadelphia is Puerto Rican. Now, problem in the past has been get out the vote.
Right.
We have people who are registered. They claim and they say they are interested. Election day, we have low voter turnout. I'd like your comments on that because in this election, come November, we have to get the vote out.
Absolutely.
The Biden people have to do everything humanly possible to get us out. In the case of Pennsylvania, well known, last time around, Trump wins it by 40,000 votes. And yet we have 150,000 in the city alone, right?
In the city alone, 187,000.
So if you get a vote out, you're okay. If you don't, so I'd like you to address this issue of get the vote out. They have to door-to-door, radio, what we're doing, but I'd like your comments on that.
Yeah, I think that has been an issue, not only over there, in Pennsylvania, but over here in Florida, in our community to get they're registered, yeah, and you make sure the ones who came from Maria when they got over here that they were taken care of, and making sure that we as elected officials made it our point to let them know who's here and why it's important to vote. Porque you need to come out and vote. I'm asking you que no se olviden de ustedes en Puerto Rico votan. In Puerto Rico, you're like what, 90% of the votes. You go out and vote with no problem, and then you come stateside, and then it's like, boom, you drop the ball, and you go like, you register, but you don't vote. And
right.
And we have to continue. I say, Fred, the dialogue, the messaging, the reaching out through all kinds of media to caravana. We're doing caravanas this weekend. Do you do that in Philly? Do you go into the neighborhoods? Are you they're sending people to do flyers? Just put door knockers on the doors and making sure, like, if they have registered to vote by mail, or if they have early voting. I don't know if you have early voting in Philly, but
yeah.
No?
It's in effect right now.
We started yesterday.
Yesterday.
That's why we were last night. We were part of the debate.
Yeah.
When they said, "Look what's going on in Philadelphia."
Yeah. But it's always. I say it's like pulling teeth, Fred. Folks have this bad habit that they wait till the last minute.
Well, Senator, we are certainly at USALA doing our part. This is part of that effort. We will continue to do this. We're going to have other shows before November, and it's all part of get out the vote.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. Senator, there was a poll taken by the Voter Participation Center, Voto Latino. It showed in that poll, which was done last week, that low enthusiasm among Latinos in states where the population could affect the outcome. And these are states that they polled about 1,200 Latino voters in 6 battleground states: Arizona, Florida, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Texas. And that poll found that Latinos continue to demonstrate low enthusiasm for the Biden campaign and candidacy. Now, I'll tell you this, and I've discussed this with Fred over and over again. I don't see an energy and motivation of the Biden campaign here in Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania is a battleground state. I don't know about Florida, but I can tell you about Pennsylvania. I don't see that movement.
And they do have a headquarters over there in Pennsylvania, who you have folks, Latinos from the Biden campaign in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's perplexing. It's very perplexing. I've discussed this with Fred, and I don't know what's really going on. We're a few weeks away from this presidential election. You're listening to USALA Radio, you're listening to Voices of Change on Usula Radio with your host Leslie Acosta and Aisha Richardson. But getting back to this issue, Fred, we don't see that movement. Have you seen that? I mean, this is problematic because Pennsylvania is very important. So is Florida, and one percentage vote can swing this election.
That's right.
Yes, we are we're doing our part. We are not panicking yet, but yes, we want to get the Pennsylvania Latino vote out. How we do it? Well, we may have to go old school again, like the senator says, knocking door to door, pulling our people out because it doesn't matter. They're registered, and then they don't vote.
Yeah.
No, we can't have that, and Usula is doing our part.
Yeah, I have another question, Senator.
Can I just? This is one thing that we just did this past Saturday. We did a leaflet in a subdivision in an area there in Osceola County, and what the DEC did was they put the slate card of all the Democrats from Biden all the way down, and the amendments and everything, one in English and one in Spanish. One on either side. So this way, when you put it on a door, que son hispano, they will be able to read it because it's in Spanish as well. And those are the ways of stimulating. I mean, we ran into some folks. Naturally, I gave them the handout, the slate card, and I told them, you need to vote. Don't sit back. Once you get your ballot, fill it out. Look at the slate card. It gives you all the information from top to bottom and how to vote. The idea is that at least if you give them the material that they can see and how to vote, and how important it is for them, you could probably have a bigger turnout. I don't know what you do in Philly, but that's what we're doing here in Osceola County and Orange County.
Okay, I have another question in regards to the Latino vote, but this in particular is the female Latino vote. How do you see that unfolding in Florida?
Many women, I would say Latino women are very energetic. They're mothers, they're wives, their daughters, they're providers. They know what they're going through. They know that they look at their families and the suffering in their families and how important it is for them to come out and vote. Latino women, Puerto Rican women, they get it. They get it, and they'll turn out. I'm sure they'll turn out because just like the percentage of in the United States of the households, many women will support Joe Biden, will come out and come out and vote for us. But para nosotros, you could see when you talk to. Oh yeah, Leslie, people said one of the first things they'll ask me is, ¿de qué partido tú eres?
Yeah.
What party do you belong to? And yo digo, demócrata. Oh, ¿tú no eres de Trump? No, hell no. Entonces me dicen, está bien, entonces vamos a hablar.
Yeah.
That's what happens with the Latino, with the Puerto Rican. You gotta tell them who you are and what you're offering and telling them, acuérdate lo que te hizo 4 años atrás o 3 años atrás cuando María struck Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
¿Qué te pasa? ¿Te olvidaste?
Yeah.
No, don't forget.
Yeah.
The future's in your hands.
The other thing, the interesting dynamic also in Florida that's in play, Senator and Fred, is the Cuban vote. Cubans, they are very conservative in their voting pattern, tend to be Catholic, and with that goes the vote towards the Republican Party, and possibly to Donald J. Trump. How are you guys counteracting that? I know that there's there was a diaspora of Puerto Rico into Florida. The Puerto Ricans have been flocking to Florida. How are you, what's the status on that? How are they courting that Puerto Rican vote in Florida to counteract the Cuban Americans that do vote Republican, heavily Republican?
Yeah. Well, you'd be surprised. The younger Cubans are not Trump supporters.
Right. That's true.
It's the older guys, the ones from 1960s or whatever. But the younger ones, no, they see the picture. They know what's going on. And South Florida is a mixture. It's not just Puerto Ricans in South Florida. You have Venezuelans, you have Dominicanos,
Central Americans,
South America. You have all the mixtures down there, and those are folks who are eligible to vote.
Okay,
And,
Senator, then I would ask you the same question. So, if we're addressing the Cuban American community of South Florida, what interest should they vote Biden? Now, I realize that if you hear a Cuban radio host out of South Florida, a lot of times you walk away with the impression that they are a one-issue political platform, which is how do you feel about Cuba and the Cuban regime presently? Está bien, I understand that. And I agree with you that most of the youth is not necessarily going down that path. But what message would you have for Cuban Americans to say, look, don't go with Trump, stay with us, vote Biden? What would you have to say about that?
I would say that look at Joe Biden to open doors that were closed by this president, and the ability for you to go and make how do you say connections with the island you came from, to be able to go back and see your family, your relatives. But a lot of them have relatives out there. A lot of them, they still have that passion, for their country. But I say you need to have the leadership in the White House so you can help your family. Acuérdate algo que Obama opened for help for the Cuban families down there. Not so much about the gobierno, it's all about the people who are suffering in Cuba. Things in Cuba are not excellent. I mean, by no means. But
you just made an understatement.
Well, it's just that a veces la gente have to realize you can't continue in the same dialogue or the same thinking that they're going to do something for you when they're in reality they're not doing anything. And how long has this been going on? How long you heard the promises from the other party that we're going to take care. Look at the Venezuela TPS. How are you going to? The Congress passed it. The Democratic Congress passed TPS to open doors, and they said to Mitch McConnell and they said to Trump, hey, give TPS to the Venezuela so they can get the temporary protection status here in the United States. What did Donald Trump do? Nada. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes, and I'm familiar also that yes, you're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, the guest we are waiting for, Darren Soto, was also involved in that,
right.
And quite disappointed also.
Yep.
So yes, you're right. We have a lot at stake this November. Our people have to not only, again, what we're emphasizing here, don't only wake up and don't say that you're registered. We need you to come out and vote. The reason we're emphasizing Pennsylvania, Florida, for the Democrats to win, we got to win both states.
We have to, yeah.
And we are a good number of people in these states. Well, so that's why we keep harping on this and forcing it and forcing the issue and having other shows like this.
Yeah. ¿Cuántos Boricuas, how many Boricuas, Puerto Ricans we have in Florida registered to vote? Do you have those numbers, Victor?
I believe, there's probably over, I want to say probably over 100,000. I mean, we have 1 million Puerto Ricans here in Florida.
Right.
I represent Central Florida. So I'm talking about Central Florida here, Osceola County and Orange County. I want to say that our representation population-wise, 60% in Osceola County and another, 35, 40% in Orange County. Majority of them are registered to vote. Some of them are no party affiliation. Some of them are Democrats and others. But I want to say that I heard the other day that Trump won the state of Florida by 100,000 votes. And when you have 1 million Puerto Ricans, that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And that's the point that we try to inspire and tell people how important it is to come out and vote. Because if we would have turned out our voters, he wouldn't be president today.
No. Yeah. Well, if you didn't, that effort, right, it should have been more of an effort because Hillary Clinton underperformed with the Latino vote massively. I mean, the way that they voted for Obama, they did not vote for Hillary Clinton, and she really didn't do much to court the Latino vote. I think Biden has done a better job. I don't know though how effective that's going to be. I know that he is courting, but I don't know how effective and efficient that courting is currently happening. One other question that I do have. Let's talk about the potential pitfalls in Pennsylvania and in Florida for Biden, because there's going to be some pitfalls here, and part of it is what you're saying, getting people, and what Fred is saying, getting out the vote. And so, look, in Pennsylvania, we have 550,000 Puerto Ricans, 550,000 Puerto Ricans that can vote here in Pennsylvania. And oftentimes, we just don't, there's not that enthusiasm. They have that voter apathy, and they don't want to come out to vote. Hopefully, with this rhetoric that's coming out of the, just case in point, what we saw last night, it was a shit show. I have to say it that way. It was ridiculous. Nothing of substance was said. Nothing we can take out of that. It was a brawl, if you will. It was like a street brawl in North Philadelphia.
Victor, suddenly I say, our people got that one. No holds barred.
And it's sad. It's sad because you think that the prestige position of a president should be to be engaging and to understand that the opposition has their opinions and you should respect that. I just think that the nature of this man, Trump, he's a bully. Él trata a la gente like they were garbage. He doesn't care because for him, tú no vale. And that's what our people got to understand. En los ojos de este hombre, tú no vale. Y si tú no vale, ¿cómo tú le vas a dar el apoyo o tú no vas a votar? Because one thing, Fred and Leslie, if you don't vote, somebody else is going to vote against you.
That's right.
That's a fact. You're listening to
bottom line. That is the bottom line. I keep telling them that. I keep telling people that. Tú no votas, otro va a votar contra ti.
Absolutely. You're listening to Voices of Change on Usula Radio with your host, Leslie Acosta and Aisha Richardson. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. The second segment, we're going to talk about, the battle for Florida's Latino voters could be decided entirely. This presidential election could be decided in Florida. And we have as our special guest from Florida, Senator Victor Torres, who's talking about the Latino vote in particular and how. So in the second segment, when we take this break, we're going to talk and come back and talk about the battle for Florida's Latino voters, which could decide this presidential election. We'll be right back.
No, cruel, very difficult. Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. And even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. I have a mentor, Maria, and she convinced me to continue my education. Just never judges. She's a true role model.
From the depths of my heart, I thank you, Maria, for being a friend and a beautiful person. No one receives a diploma alone, and I'm honored to share this moment with you. Thank you.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome back. You are listening to Voices of Change on Usula Radio with your host, Leslie Acosta and Aisha Richardson. We have Fred Ramirez with us today as a special guest, and we also have Senator Victor Torres from Florida. We were hoping for Congressman Darren Soto to be with us as well, but hopefully in the next segment we should hopefully get Congressman Darren. But Victor, we thank you, Senator, for participating in this forum today. I think it's so important, to talk about the Latino vote and talk about how we can ignite and energize and motivate and educate the Latino population, because it's becoming an increasingly large voting bloc in the United States, at the tune of 32 million Latino eligible Latinos to vote in the United States. And I think that, if we don't do a better job, not only us as politicians, as people that are in the public eye, informing people and educating people, the importance of voting. Voting is a civil right, and so we have to exercise that. That is your power. That is your power to elect people into office and to take someone out of office, Senator. And that is just so important. The vote, and the Latino vote, is going to be very, very crucial for the presidential election. There's a consensus, Senator, that the election in November will largely depend, the outcome of it will depend on a handful of states. And we keep mentioning this. We keep mentioning Florida. We keep mentioning Pennsylvania. We know that President Donald Trump won Pennsylvania. He won Michigan. He won Florida. So these states are going to be very crucial. Even though Biden is leading in these states, I think that the lead is getting closer in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Florida, Arizona, and even Georgia and in Texas. Even though they have big and large Latino populations in Texas and in Arizona, I think the polls are closing in, is tighter than what we expect and think. What say you, Senator?
Yeah, no, and you are 100% correct. It's not the time to lay back. It's a time to reactivate. Don't think that you're behind and always push forward. I think that especially us Puerto Ricans and Latino community, what do we like? We like music, we like food, we like entertainment. The pandemic has cut us short of activities that we normally would have. But if by some miracle, if something that can be done safely to attract the community to come down and hear, at a safe distance, stay in your car, listen to Tito Nieves or Mark Anthony or Jennifer Lopez or whoever can come in, but you have to stay in your car or near your car. You can't go up there at a safe distance and let them entertain you. And the only way you can get in is like you have a voting card that you are a registered voter, and you can get food or whatever for free. I mean, you have to think out of the box. You have to get people energized. And the only way I can see that doing is making sure that, or if you're going to go vote, take them all at once, like the African American, they do souls to the polls on a Sunday. These are all things that this community has to start looking at and energizing in our churches and making sure that some of these churches also get engaging. Even though they don't have their mass, but they still have the virtual where they can let their parishioners know, vayan a votar, que necesitamos su voto para ayudar a la comunidad. And the other thing is the census is another topic that's hitting this community. So there's so many things coming at us all at once, and we need our people to start getting engaged. And hopefully, through all these states that you mentioned, I always say, don't believe the polls. Just fight every day, every time you can. Make sure they turn out and press them. Keep pressing, because that's the only way that we're going to win and get the votes out.
Yeah.
Senator, this is Fred Ramirez again. And by the way, to the listening audience, for the sake of transparency and clarity, I'm also the president of Usala Media. That's for, again, for transparency. Senator, one of the things you mentioned is extremely important and disappointing at the same time. Our churches do not mirror the African American church.
Absolutely.
Most of our churches do not urge their parishioners, the members of the church, register and go out to vote. They take extremely seriously the separation of church and state, unlike African American pastors. This is an issue that has probably dogged us for the last 30 years, easily 3 decades, that we have all these people that go to service on Wednesday night. We all in the barrio hear the vans picking them up at home.
Right.
We know when the van comes back at 10 o'clock at night because they went to service.
Right.
Catholic churches, masses filled on Sundays. And yet rarely do you hear a pastor say, you have an obligation to your community, to your people, to your children, to your family, to the future, to go out and vote. Exercise your vote as a citizen. My Lord, we have so many people in other countries in Latin America that do not have that vote. And it's very frustrating because I would like every chance I get. I tell the pastors, I'm in the behavioral health field. And every time they come to meetings and all, I say, we need your help. You cannot ignore this. Look at the African American church. They are the vanguard of voter participation and change in this democracy. We need the same. And it's very frustrating. And I thank leaders like yourself who are out there beating the bushes for this. It is frustrating, but we must do it. We have to get out our vote.
Well, we're fortunate here, like in Central Florida. My priest, the Father Jose Rodriguez, he just reached out to my daughter and myself, Amy Mercado, to have a town hall with parishioners next week, next Monday, on this issue, voting. To make sure that how they realize how important it is. I have, and when we were doing mass, and I was going to, and I would come up before the parishioners, and I would encourage them to register to vote, make sure that you participate, that you don't stay behind. Like I said before, there's many methods. I don't know if you guys in Philly do caravanas. I don't know if you guys.
Oh yeah, we do that.
Yeah, and just keep punching at it, going through the neighborhoods, making sure la música, with the boombox and all this stuff, because you know what? It's all about enthusiasm. It's all, especially early voting, to make sure how the people, hoy puede ir a votar, y with la música. The issue is you have to have that emotion to have them realize how proud you are of your heritage, and you want your people to be counted as making a difference in this election. And that's the only way that I think people will understand that.
One of the issues against Senator Torres, one of the issues that we should probably be touching upon more in this struggle between Biden and Trump, and of course, unabashedly, we are Biden people. And one of the things that we should emphasize more is something that is also dear to your heart that you have addressed through your committees. You were a member or are a member of the Education Committee. Education is vital for the future of our people, and I think they should also realize that with the Biden administration, we would fare far better in the across the board on all issues of education.
Yeah, the committee. I was in the House. I was in the Education Committee for 4 years, and it was interesting how many of the things that came up that I questioned, and I said, why don't we, and they would tell me, we don't have enough money, until we suffered a tragic loss of children and teachers at Parkland through the shooting from that student. There's many issues, and education and our children achieving a scholarship has been how do you say, the bar has risen, so they won't be allowed to reach that status. And I remember one representative saying to me, well, they have to be bright. I says, what do you think? The kids are not bright? They're bright. I says, the problem they have no money, and their parents are working stiffs and trying to get their kids to get educated. The kids want to be a doctor. They want to be a lawyer. They want to have a profession. And, these are things that we drive for commitment, for people to understand that this is how when you vote, this is how you change the philosophy and what's going up in town. People look at you and they say, who's standing behind you, Fred? They look at the voting block and they go like, oh, he's got the the Hispanic, the Puerto Ricans coming out and voting. And that's what drives this issue. And I'm going to tell you, here in Florida, we have redistricting coming up in 2022.
Yes, yes.
That's right.
Let's talk about that in a minute too.
They're going to rechange all that. So we have to make sure that our constituents know the importance and the commitment that we have for them.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you another question, Victor, Senator.
You got
The
a
young,
million.
yeah, we have. It's concerning, you know, a lot of the stuff, you know, everybody's on, you know, is a little bit nervous about this election. We cannot underestimate President Donald Trump. Please, let's make that clear.
Mm-hmm.
Young people between the ages of 18 and 21 are active in social movements. We know this, and they are. We can also underestimate the youth vote. And they hold a strong belief that their generation can achieve change. So I would say 3/4 of our youth, 74%, say that they are paying some or a lot of attention to the 2020 election. And 76% believe it will have an impact on their communities as a whole. In addition to that, 77% of the youth say that the COVID-19 pandemic has helped them realize that political leaders' decisions impact their daily lives. Tell me how in Florida, in Pennsylvania, I can tell you there is a young youth vote here and movement. I don't know in Florida. On that front, how are we courting the youth vote, and who's in charge of that?
Okay, well, I'll give you right here in Central Florida, in Osceola, we do have with the local party, we have a youth, young Democrats who are reaching out and engaging with the youth and trying to make them realize how important it is. Like you said, they all come from different walks of life. They all have different issues. Those who want to further their career, because the other issue to a young man or young woman is, what is it that you want to do in life? What do you want to engage in? We have the university, UCF, DEMS, also engaging with those young students and making it possible. The idea is the more organizations that reach out to the youth and try to get them to engage and get them to be involved, helps promote early voting, vote by mail, and making sure that on election day they go out and vote. You try the best you can. I know that, I try to engage with the young Democrats and go before them and talk to them and encourage them and make sure. A muchacho hispano like UCF, I went out there to talk to them. They're from Puerto Rico. A lot of them that were from Maria that came over here. So everything that they were looking at and how they engaged, we were making sure that they understood how important it was and to who to vote for, because that's the other thing with, don't go by their last name and say, this is a person that's going to do the right thing for you.
Yeah.
That's the other problem we have, that.
See, millennials, Fred, they make up 44% of the Latino vote. That's a huge amount of
Huge number,
a big number, and they are the main driver of growth when it comes to the Latino electorate. So there's we got to pay attention to those things, if the senator.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues. What is it? 32 days left before the election. Who's counting?
Yeah, there's something like that, approximately. Creo algo así. You're listening to Voices of Change on Usula Radio with your host Leslie Acosta and Aisha Richardson. We have here with us, we have Senator Victor Torres from Florida. He represents the 15th district. Is that correct?
The
That's
15th
correct,
state
ma'am.
senatorial.
And state senatorial district, and we have Fred Ramirez, the CEO and president of Usula Media. Well, Victor, it's a pleasure. Hopefully, we can do a second round to this before the election. Thank you for what you're doing in Florida. Thank you for the work that you're doing in Florida, and even this issue of motivating people and telling people, look, the importance of voting. It's a right, and we should exercise that right. So thank you for what you do.
Leslie, I think yeah, you're right. We have to emphasize that. I think this young Latino voters and Latino voters across the board, they have to feel they have a compromiso. They have a compromise with democracy.
Yeah.
And to get their vote out.
Right.
Because, as was mentioned earlier, if in the case of Puerto Rico on the island you can have 80 to 90% of the vote of the registered voters come out to vote on election day,
Right.
don't cross the ocean and suddenly that disappears. Correct. Just like you have the ingrained values on the island on voting and that tradition. Transmit it over here. Transport it over here, because we are also fighting battles that are very important for future generations of Hispanic and Puerto Rican people. As mentioned earlier, education, economic development. Where are we as a people? Where are we going? They have to vote. They have to support people like State Senator Victor, who's on the ballot, by the way, in November.
Are you on the ballot, Victor?
Yeah, I'm on the ballot. We're sending out mailers and information, because with the pandemic, we don't want anybody to be exposed, but we're doing what they call leaf droppings on the doors,
Good.
to make sure people get the message. You're right, Fred. For me, it's always been a pleasure as a state senator that when we have session or committee weeks, the kids will come by. The kids from the schools come by to my office and they sit down and they look at pictures, and they look at placards, and they look at my life, my life history, and they would tell me, well, you were a cop in New York? Yeah. And were you in the Marines? Yeah, I was in the Marines. I mean, you can relate and you can talk with them and talk to them at their level. Don't talk at them, talk with them, let them know how important you feel about them. And, I would get feedback. I would get notes sent back to my office. And they would say, Senator, the kids that came by here last week, they sent you a card. And they would say, thank you for coming, for letting us come to your office, meeting with us. Yo te digo, Fred and Leslie, lo más grande del mundo es que tú make contact con esta juventud.
Yeah.
Yes.
They have to know that you care for them. And their families. That's the important part.
Yeah.
Listen, Victor, before I leave, I'd just like to a shout out to other people there in Florida. Person very close to you, Carmen Torres.
Uh-huh.
We will get her in the future. I understand quite a firebrand and political motivator. So a shout out to her, and a shout out to Brendan of Pan American Behavioral Health, who's always thinking up of these things. And of course, before I leave, I want to thank you very much for your participation.
I don't want to, one thing I want to mention to Leslie and to you, Fred. Try to get my daughter, Amy Mercado. She's the first Puerto Rican female to won an election for constitutional officer here in Central Florida.
How about that?
Yeah.
A constitutional officer is like your tax collector, your sheriff, your mayors, and she won for the property appraiser here in Central Florida in Orange.
That's
so
great.
She won by 70,000 votes on a primary, which is never has been recognized. People are like amazed how she won. And I think that she can add to the dialogue that you, Leslie, and you, Fred, are looking for.
That's good to know. That's right.
Yeah,
I'll send you Amy's contact, and this way, as a proud dad, but a Puerto Rican that knows when el mensaje has to be sent, what better a good female to let them know how important their votes are for this coming election.
well,
That's right.
Senator, we're looking into doing a town hall meeting soon, possibly in 2 weeks. We're going to do a second segment to this show. And it's going to be, the title of the show is going to be Circle the Wagon, the youth vote, and maybe we can have her chime in at that time in that town hall meeting. I think it's going to be important to have voices like that also participate in this conversation that we're having about the Latino, especially the youth vote también. It's huge.
Yep, you do.
Entonces, Senator, thank you again for your participation. Good luck to you. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a shoe-in for you. That's orangutan simple, I would say.
And now let me say what Leslie would say. This is Usala Media, Usala Radio out of Philadelphia. We've been having a nice long chat and very important chat with State Senator Victor Torres, District 15 of Florida. Senator, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Well, we've concluded this segment of Voices of Change on Usala Radio. We'll see you next week, and thank you for participating. Thank you again.